This is what I thought when I saw that there were 2 Monday night games in week 2. We're not getting to
Come
those
on.
yet. Come on. We're not getting to those yet. That's for part 2, but here we go with part 1.
You got a team, here's a word to the wise. You want to dominate your league? Go to football, guys.
Football, I'm living in a fantasy. Football, got everybody mad at me. Football, cause every game I had to win. Football, I gotta be a champion. Football, I'm living in a fantasy.
That's right. It is here. It is week 2. Time to set your lineup, and that's why we're here. Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom on the Audible. Minnesota and Philadelphia up first. Kirk Cousins and everybody doing it for an encore, but getting a win against Philadelphia could prove tough. So how do they tough it out with their star power? True star power on the Vikings, Bloom. But again, Philadelphia, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, see, it's interesting because they're teams that are underperformed in week 1. Both of these teams would qualify, but
Yes.
the Eagles at least escaped with a win. The Vikings did not, and everybody who were pointing at their one score win efficiency, and how that can't possibly keep up. Certainly, feeling like week 1 is proving them to be true. Was it just Tampa Bay's run defense is good, or is this really going to be a pass-heavy team? We're going to watch that. We saw Mac Jones have a lot of success against Philadelphia through the air last week. Yes, Mac Jones. So you would think it's going to be a Kirk Cousins game, potentially a shootout. And of course, that means Justin Jefferson, but it could also mean, well, Jordan Addison had that long touchdown last week. But let's remember that KJ Osborne also got some end zone targets and drew a pass interference deep in enemy territory. So maybe both of them could be valuable. We know that TJ Hawkinson will continue to get those short targets. You'll take it. Hey, he was outstanding by week 1 tight end standards. We're going to watch Alexander Mattison, who at least bailed us out with that receiving touchdown with some broken tackles. But this, again, might not be a run-heavy team, or at the very least, if the Vikings will say, hey, we're going to attack the weakness that Mac Jones and company found with short passing, we may not see what Madison's true value is going to be. But again, Ty Chandler didn't do much last week. The New England offensive line was banged up, didn't make a difference against the Philly defense. But they were able to move the ball. New England was. Minnesota's offensive line also banged up. So we'll see how that figures in on a short week. And see, as we look at Philadelphia, in fantasy football, we are paying a lot more attention to play callers. And could it be maybe the change in play caller that was at least partially responsible, give Bill Belichick's D some credit, for Jalen Hurts' really rough week 1?
Yeah, and that's something where it's all about fit. It's finding your fit and it's finding your rhythm. And then it's finding your backfield. The Philadelphia backfield could continue to confound. So I know a lot of people excited about what they're going to see. And obviously, Jalen Hurts is exciting. It's the Philadelphia Eagles, but it's that backfield and it's those running backs, plural, that could confuse. How do you break through the haze in week 2?
You hope that this is an offense that looks like previous year and not the previous week. Minnesota's defense made Baker Mayfield look like a game competitor. So we may see more of that from Jalen Hurts. But I think the play calling and just the crispness of the offense is something we're going to watch, as the Brian Flores defense was not a big story for Minnesota. Maybe it's a little bit better on a short week, but you don't like the chances of slowing down Jalen Hurts. Maybe a Dallas Goedert bounce back. He should be in your lineup. You just hope for more downfield passing. This was not a defense last week, rough conditions, but still, they were not threatening downfield and weren't efficient in the short passing game the way that Mac Jones and company were. Kenneth Gainwell looked pretty good last week, or at least better than the other backs, but he has got a rib issue. Hasn't practiced as of this recording on Wednesday morning, so we could see a redemption story for DeAndre Swift. Could see Rashad Penny active, actually, redemption story for him, possibly. As again, Philadelphia, they escape with a win, but this is a game, I think, to get that confidence, as you can look around the NFC at, say, San Francisco and say, yeah, even though Philadelphia won the NFC title game last week, right now they're well behind where San Francisco is to start the season.
Well, what about the Green Bay Packers and the Atlanta Falcons next up here on the Audible? And with Green Bay, it's like, okay, Wednesday morning, whenever you're listening, I know you're watching live. Some of you, thank you for being here.
Yeah.
But we're waiting for the injury report because, well, Christian Watson Romeo Dobbs had it all. We almost had it all, right, Bloom?
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we did have it all.
Almost have it all?
We had it all, baby, with Romeo
Yeah.
Dobbs, and now with Christian Watson, we're waiting, Judge Smalls, we're waiting on to see if he's going to be able to play. And how does that impact what Dobbs can do? Luke Musgrave, what's he going to do? Jordan Love continuing, and Aaron Jones a little bit banged up. A.J. Dillon didn't do anything.
No.
Okay, well, are they going to use a combo? Like, you can use a combo. You ask Mike McCarthy. There's such a thing. Get that combo, baby. He might get more than one, but either way, let's talk Green Bay and what they'll do to attack Atlanta.
Favorite combo. Cheddar cheese is okay, but pizza combos. That's
I
the
can't
one
eat
you want
pizza
to.
anymore, man. It's the only thing that I miss, and it's the bread. I think it's the bread or the cheese. I can't figure it out because I don't eat breads or sugars now. And my God, pizza was a staple in my diet. So were Baconators, but that's why I was 60 pounds overweight.
See, so I'm just picturing you like Wolverine in the bed with a picture of a pizza. It's
I
Green Bay.
Ben Stiller at the end of Dodgeball when he says, "Friggin' Chuck Norris."
Well, Green Bay wasn't saying friggin' Christian Watson because Jordan Love was good, and Romeo Dobbs and Luke Musgrave. We'll see what this pass offense looks like. It should be a low volume pass offense, but it still created a good week for Romeo Dobbs, even though he wasn't 100% with the 2 touchdowns. Luke Musgrave certainly pointing to bigger things for him as potentially a downfield tight end target. And then we'll see what Watson can do. But again, this was a pretty solid debut for Jordan Love. Certainly one that gives you hope that this team can hang in this division and be a potential playoff team. Aaron Jones, the key to the offense last week, coming in this week with a hamstring. Like you said, A.J. Dillon, he's just not good. And maybe we'll see some Patrick Taylor. Maybe we'll see the offense run more through Jordan Love in the passing game after how good they looked. But see, you look at this game and you feel like this is going to be one of those boxing matches where the ref is constantly having to step in and say, break it up, they just clench in the middle of the ring because both of these teams want to run. Both of these teams want to be conservative. Both of these teams don't want to put too much on the plate of the quarterback. So for Atlanta, we're looking for a bounce back from this passing game. We're looking for a more competitive game that will force them out of their shell. And I just don't know, especially if Aaron Jones is limited or not playing, if that can happen. So I think we're going to continue to get more Drake London and Kyle Pitts questions. And yeah, we all have a question mark over our head because this offense is going to be very game script specific.
Yeah, and we're going to have questions about Tyler Algier. Can he do it again? I'll go Martin Lawrence. Would you do what you did earlier, please? Like, okay, Tyler. And it doesn't take any of my enthusiasm away from Bijan Robinson. Robinson always, for me, always in the starting lineup. Everyone's starting lineup, of course. But then it continues like, they're not asking Ritter to do much. What about now when they ask him to do more? So again, game plan specific. And do the Packers put it up enough so that Ritter has to do something so that London and Pitts can do more? Or will it be on the ground with Algier and Bijan and somewhere Cordell Patterson's floating around? Let's talk.
Yeah, see, that's what's going to be interesting about projecting this Atlanta offense week to week. You almost have to start with, well, how good is the opposing offense? And I don't know that Green Bay is going to force Atlanta out of their shell. We saw Ritter 18 pass attempts last week, 15 completions, but almost all short passing. And that's a problem for Drake London and Kyle Pitts. And I don't know that Green Bay is going to force Atlanta out of their shell. And for that matter, with Desmond Ritter, maybe they're just protecting him. And if he has to pass more downfield, maybe it's not going to be successful anyway. So, we're not necessarily looking at this game as one we come out of with the redemption narrative for London and for Pitts. That being said, I still think there will be better games for London and Pitts ahead, as London especially had a much better year last year under worse conditions with Marcus Mariota. But this defense is better, and this running game is better. That's the thing. 18 pass attempts for Desmond Ritter, but between Algier and Bijan Robinson, I think we had around 35 touches for them. And isn't that exactly what Arthur Smith wants? So they'll stick with that as long as they can. Algier looks like a flex play here, getting the goal line work. And Bijan Robinson, like you said, no lack of enthusiasm, even though he's in closer to a 50-50 committee than we expected, because he looked as good as expected, and he looked like an emphasis in the passing game, which again, maybe that's what we didn't factor in, not just that this wasn't going to be a prolific downfield passing game, but that Bijan Robinson and Tyler Algier also involved in the passing game. This team is going to stay conservative as long as they can. Smart football by Arthur Smith, but drives us for fantasy up the wall.
Yeah, love Arthur Smith. Love him. Wishing all the success for the Atlanta Falcons. We'll see what kind of fight they can put up in week 2. Who would have thought this, Bloom? That in week 2, we would have the top of the AFC West, Las Vegas Raiders, by themselves, by the way,
Yeah.
sitting atop the AFC West, and then traveling to face the 0-1 Buffalo Bills. And I don't pay attention to punters or kickers, but embarrassing, man. Embarrassing effort. I think it was, I don't know who had it. Somebody had it on Twitter, and I just kept seeing the video over and over, like last night through random scrolling. I was like, that's a god-awful effort on a tackle from whoever that was. Anyway, Bloom, let's talk about who it is and who it was for the Las Vegas Raiders last week. Josh Jacobs didn't do a whole lot. What about this week? Devontae Adams didn't do a whole lot last week. What about this week? Okay. We imagine that Jacoby Myers is out, so Hunter Renfrow gets going, perhaps, and then we'll continue to watch the tight end situation. But against Buffalo, an angry Buffalo team, they're angry. The Raiders are likely to put their foot on the gas. They're going to have to. Well, what does that mean for your fantasy teams?
Yes, as you highlighted, Devontae Adams should do more this week. He's not going to be facing PS2. And Jacoby Myers, we're watching with concussion. Maybe we'll see some more Hunter Renfrow. I think we'll see Josh Jacobs get on track a little bit better than he did last week. The Broncos did a good job shutting him down. But the good news for the Raiders is they got a road win in the division. Jimmy Garoppolo didn't get hurt. And although Jimmy Garoppolo wasn't the most outstanding, it does look like this offense is at least going to be viable. And they're facing a Buffalo team, and I will watch this season, a Monday night game, an emotionally overwrought kind of game with the Aaron Rodgers injury, with just losing to a division rival in a game where you're facing Zach Wilson, and an overtime game. So how does Buffalo emotionally respond? How the Raiders can kind of, like you said, Cecil, all in, it's just 1 week, but they can start to maybe create some momentum here as an upstart, even though they're the team coming in 1-0 instead of 0-1. It's nothing to lose. And for Buffalo and Cease, again, we can't speak its name out loud, but you have been hinting, lassie barking at Josh Allen, maybe not fully focused on football. And even though it was the Jets defense, the Raiders defense wasn't too bad against the Broncos, but we might see that it really was just that the Broncos offense isn't too good. But Josh Allen and company needs a bounce back this week. It's time to get a little worried.
Yeah, and they need it without everyone playing hero ball. And the stuff with Josh, I mean, I won't get into other things, but like you can just see it. Like he's on the cover of Madden. He's doing all these commercials. Like, I don't need to see that until you get rings, baby. I see a Pat Mahomes commercial, you know what I do? I smile.
Yeah.
Because he's done it. Josh, you ain't done it, man. And like as the offseason went on, I changed my opinion about Stephon Diggs' attitude towards the end of last season in the postseason. And I'm on the side of Stephon Diggs. Dude, you've got to get it done. Your window in the NFL is not that long. The Buffalo Bills window. And if it doesn't work this year, Sean McDermott's going to get blamed. And I flipping hate that because I love Sean McDermott. I think McDermott is a great coach. This is an overarching theme, Bloom. So I'm sorry I'm not like previewing Buffalo side, but we already know who it's supposed to be.
Sure.
We already know that Josh Allen's supposed to do this. He's supposed to, and writing about, hey, it's a new Josh Allen. Can we get the old Josh Allen? Like, it's the new Josh Allen that doesn't need to run as much. No. Do, run, go. Take less hits, but come on, man. You're better than this. You're way better than that. And, of course, the Jets can get after it, and they did with Josh Allen because he wasn't blitzed. I think it was Warren Sharp that had some numbers out about, like, he was barely blitzed, but he was hit all the time. Like, so he was like the most hit quarterback last week. He was one of the least blitzed quarterbacks last week. Okay, but Josh, you got to get your ball to the playmakers. You got to make plays yourself without trying to do too much. It's a balance. And well, it's difficult if other things are distracting you that aren't football.
Yeah. Again, Buffalo's got to get it together. Josh Allen really's got to get it together. And you want to see
Yes.
something from the secondary guys. You know that Stephon Diggs, and you wonder against a tough defense, Stephon Diggs might not get quite the same target share. Not that you're putting Diggs on the bench or anything like that, but you want to see more from Gabe Davis. You want to see more from Dalton Kincaid. Dawson Knox still involved, Deontay Hardy involved. But really, the guy I'm focusing on here is James Cook. And I don't think that you can say Cook is any of the reason that the Bills went down, but you hope that this is an offense with more balance. There's a lot of talk this offseason about more balance, a better running game. Cook will get the opportunity to do that. And I think this is one of those games for Cook, too, where if we don't see a big game from him in this one, now we're starting to really consider him more of a flex play instead of that play with momentum coming out of the summer that we saw as a running back, too, who could have running back one upside. But you saw the Raiders, even with the Chandler Jones issues, have a game performance. And again, I want to highlight this. I haven't specifically said this, but what we're going to be doing as we go through week 2, you have 2 different factors that we're going to tease out. One is it week 1's the preseason still, and we get a lot of results that we can't look at with much predictive value, and we're already trying to do this. So we haven't talked about Cincinnati yet, but hey, Cincinnati always starts slow and things like that, right? But the other thing we have to tease apart is how much of what we saw in week 1, in so much as it does have predictive value, was more about the defense than the offense. So we're going to watch this game, and if the Bills offense puts up 31 or 34 and looks good, and some of the secondary guys get involved, and James Cook breaks some big plays, I'm going to say it's the Jets defense. Really, the Jets defense might be an avoid, except for our very best fantasy players every week. But if the Bills struggle, and we might say, well, maybe the Raiders defense isn't bad, and then we're going to watch the Broncos and say maybe the Broncos offense is just that bad. So you can see all the transitive properties here. So as we're watching week 2, we're going to recontextualize what we learned in week 1. And for Bills fans, because he's like we talk about, we have a lot of Bills fans that are close to our hearts.
We love them.
In our lives. You hope that this isn't a week that makes them ask more questions about where this team is really headed.
Well, life and football is all about math. And the easy math for me, like you mentioned, is there with Cook. Like, just dump it off.
Yeah.
Dump it off. It's a long handoff. You get it to a playmaker. Like, it's easy. Diggs is open all the time. You're going to have to scheme. They'll bracket him, whatever. But that's easy math. So keep it easy, Buffalo. You got this, man. You got this. But football games aren't done in a vacuum. You have to look at everything collectively together, which leads us to our next game, which is incredibly interesting because, like, okay, Lamar Jackson, it's Baltimore and Cincinnati up next, Bloom, but like, Lamar, you can be better. Why didn't it look good? Throw to more Zay Flowers. I went back and watched more Zay Flowers highlights again, Bloom, because I love him that much because he's so exciting. Was it someone in the chat room? K1, somebody said, like, he's like Antonio Brown in the day. Like, yeah, Zay Flowers is that dude. Now fantasy GMs will be watching. What about my Justice Hill? Just got him on the waiver wire. Like, I'm against that. I'm a non-believer in justice. We'll save that for another
Cecil.
show. Exactly. Data. But like, okay, is it Gus? Where's Melvin Gordon kicking around? Like, lots of backfield questions, but just questions overall. Like, Lamar didn't look as good, and we're all excited about the Todd Monken system. So, and I'm excited about Zay Flowers. You should be as well. But like, and where's Mark Andrews at?
Right.
We're recording Wednesday morning. We'll figure it out.
Right. The big unveil, the Todd Monken offense is lots of passes to Zay Flowers at the line of scrimmage. I mean, you loved it if you had Zay Flowers, and we'll see if that continues. If that's a fixture in this offense, certainly you're going to keep Flowers in your lineup. The backfield question is probably none of the above. Melvin Gordon's going to make this a 3-headed backfield. I still think Gus Edwards is probably the best pickup based on the value that Hill is going to go for more than Edwards in the waiver wire pickups. But again, the answer might be none of the above. And we'll see if Keaton Mitchell can come off of IR. He had some momentum, a speedy, smaller back that could add a different kind of look to this backfield. But we really want to see downfield passing. And Ronnie Stanley's banged up, a lot of offensive line injuries. So that's another thing we're going to contextualize. You know, we're going to get to the Seattle game, but how much of the choppy play from these offenses are all these offensive line injuries. Ronnie Stanley key to this offense. So Baltimore, we want to see Lamar Jackson not be as sloppy with the ball, but we want to see Lamar Jackson be able to pass downfield to Odell Beckham and to Mark Andrews. And maybe that's it, Cease. Maybe we're just going to wake up from week 1 and say, oh, well, just that's what happens when you take Mark Andrews out of this offense. It does become more difficult, and it's a new install. And let's give some credit to D'Amico Ryans and the game competitors of the Houston defense. The Cincinnati defense may be a little weary from having to tackle Nick Chubb, maybe feeling a little humiliated, certainly missing Jesse Bates, who almost single-handedly won the game for Atlanta. So we're going to see Cincinnati, who we consider last year, especially against passing games, a limiting factor for fantasy. So that's another thing. Maybe if Baltimore doesn't get off the schneid in this one, we say, well, hey, it's Cincinnati. But if they do, we may say, hey, Cincinnati's defense, what we expected. And just to transition into Cincinnati, again, Kansas City, Cincinnati, and Buffalo all lost in week 1. But one of these teams is not worried, and it's not Cincinnati. They should be worried.
Yeah, they're definitely worried. And Joe Burrow, come on, buddy. Come on. Get that home cooking in Cincinnati. And that's where it all begins, Bloom. Like, so all the others, the auxiliary and the superstars and Jamar Chase, like all this, it all starts with Joey B. You can tell me how Joey B plays. I'll tell you what they can do. I can tell you the fantasy implications because of that. You can't tell me how Joey B's going to play. Well, we're kind of left just wondering and guessing.
Yeah, that's the thing, the second data point. And it's really easy to say it's going to be okay. Joe Burrow starts slow, but some of it was the conditions. He had trouble getting a grip on the ball, but this just offense looked so out of sync. The only sort of good thing you could say is it is Joe Mixon's backfield. What's that going to be worth if this offense doesn't get going? Baltimore did lose Marcus Williams. Hopefully they'll get him back at some point this year. So there could be some downfield, middle of the field targets for Higgins or Chase. Higgins, 8 targets, no catches. You hope for a bounce back there, but we're going to see him more as a wide receiver 3 flex until he does. And the other thing I got to highlight here, again, you're probably going to stick with Burrow and Chase and Higgins. Mixon, you're probably still going to stick with as at least a flex play, if not a running back too. And Baltimore's defense did make life rough for rookie quarterback CJ Stroud. But again, we're going to watch Houston against Indianapolis. If Houston's offense struggles against Indy, and Cincinnati's offense struggles against Baltimore, we might say, well, it might just be that the Burrow calf injury is more of an issue than they're letting on, that this offense isn't necessarily. Last year, Warren Sharp does some really great work telling stories with numbers. And sees teams have all offseason to study, right? He did a really good job showing that Cincinnati fixed their offense last year with something really straightforward. Just Burrow in the shotgun and just make a quick read, 3 wide receivers, a pretty straightforward approach. But are they going to be able to evolve if they are stuck in the ditch on the side of the road after this game? I think one of the other things that we have to keep in mind in the background here, Cease, and you can attest to this, things do change pretty quickly. And what the most difficult part is really digesting and understanding that the NFL is constantly in motion, and teams that are standing still get passed. Are the Bengals one of those teams that are standing still?
And are you a believer? Because while things are falling apart, you have to believe that you'll get them back together. And you've only got 17 marks to do that. So every time, and well, we'll get it next time, and then we'll get it next time. Well, again, I'll go Martin Lawrence. Someone else got your time. Like, that's what happens in this situation. We shall see. 4 up, 4 down, 4 up, 4 to go. Something. I don't know. We're doing 8 games. Got 4 of them done. Want to remind you, you love the show. You want to support the show. We don't do any silly super chats. Just do it. Do it. I'm going to go do it by checking out footballguys.com. Sign them up for our free daily newsletter. It is every day, hot and fresh to your inbox with takes, the latest news from all around fantasy football. And the takes are by Sigmund Bloom, Cecil Lammey, I went third person, and Joe Bryan, a hell of a trio. So it's all about who do you trust, right? I hope you trust us after 18 years of the Audible, and Joe's been kicking it with Football Guys since the cheatsheets.net days. in the old Yeller days. That's right. Anyway, so we got it for you. You have a life. We don't. It is footballguys.com and sign up for that subscription. You want to support the show? I love the show. I want to support the show. Subscribe to footballguys.com. That's the way to do that. And great price, annual price. We appreciate you for doing that. Seattle and Detroit is up next. And I have to highlight this because Eric's like, Cecil, I love you.
Yeah.
Like, for real, heart you.
Come
I'm
over.
a Lions fan, and
Come
I
over
can't help
to
but
the
point
Dan
out you had said
Campbell.
they would get
Yeah.
their asses kicked by Kansas
Come
City
on,
last week.
Cease. Come on.
Sorry, Joe. Now, Bloom, I don't put you in this category,
Yeah.
but I think the Lions bandwagon, it's getting a little kitschy. You know, it's getting a little like, and I think the Lions. Okay. And Eric, I will say, I love you too, brother. And I'm not making excuses. Listen, I'm going to be wrong about things. I'm fully aware of this. And yeah, I thought KC would kick their ass. And we did the show on Tuesday before Travis Kelce was hurt. So we'll talk Kansas City in a little bit at the end of this show and like, oh, the Travis Kelce effect. All right. Detroit, good job. Good win. Now do it again. This time at home against Seattle. And guess what I'm doing? I'm going to pick the Lions. So if they lose, Eric Bloom, you can blame me. But it's against Seattle. And as we talk about this game, Bloom, I can't help but note like Geno Smith and the play of Geno Smith. And then again, looking at the advanced data last year of Geno Smith, like, okay, Geno, we like you. We're glad you got your money. We're glad that you this redemption story. Like, it's a great story. But is he a great quarterback? The answer is no. Okay. Is he above average quarterback? Sure. But like things have to go pretty perfect for Geno and the Seahawks going to face a hungry Lions team. It's not what you want to do entering week 2.
No, and what you would think or hope, and again, the key here is things were going okay for Seattle, and then Charles Cross and Abraham Lucas, their second year, sensational pair of tackles, both got banged up. So we're going to watch the practice reports. We're going to watch the injury updates for them. It's Pete Carroll. So, Pete Carroll might say, we hope to have him this week, and they're pondering whether to put him on IR or have surgery. We have no idea. So we just have to go on the specific data we get of those injury reports and practice reports. So if those guys aren't playing, or if they're limited, if they're playing but they're gutting it out, especially against Aiden Hutchinson, one of your breakout stars. It feels like forever ago, that Thursday night game. One of your breakout stars of week 1. Don't look at the stat sheet. Watch the game.
Watch the double spin moves.
Yeah,
it's
watch
beautiful.
the game. Aiden Hutchinson. So healthy tackles or not, Aiden Hutchinson is a handful, and you would think that Seattle would not want to leave Geno Smith out there as a sitting duck and use more Kenneth Walker, who looked good. And the split is not really that close to committee. It is Kenneth Walker's backfield. He did come out of week 1 healthy, and he was good on his touches. So you would expect a lot more Walker, and at least DK Metcalf scored, so you leave him in. But Tyler Lockett, Jackson Smith, and Jigba, again, until we see these tackles are healthy, until we see this passing game is clicking for an entire game, and until we see that, hey, maybe the Lions defense isn't a pushover. Maybe the Lions defense isn't going to be one that we're going to target when we're looking for passing plays. So I think you looked at this on the schedule before the season started and say, oh boy, week 2, you're going to want to start your Seattle passing game parts against Detroit. Maybe not. And yeah, let's come into the warm embrace of the Dan Campbell hive, of the Lions hive, because I'll lead into the Lions like this. How could it be more perfect for the Lions to go on the road in week 1 against the Chiefs and win, and yet have everyone say it's counterfeit, it doesn't count, come on, Kelce didn't play, come on, all the drops. They still get to have the us against the world Lions, even though they just beat the world champions.
Well, and honestly, that's exactly what you want. You don't want people jumping all over the bandwagon and jumping into the Lions den. You said the hive, Bloom. I'll say it's the den.
Sure.
The warm, comfy den. There's a Roman, the joke here somewhere I'm struggling to find. But either way, like the warm Lions den, you don't want that. You want people to doubt you. You want people to not believe in you. And then can we just get more Jahmyr Gibbs? Like, plenty of the sun god.
Right,
I was actually watching a documentary on Amon-Ra last night, and a documentary on a Looney Tunes show I forgot they ever made, the Lunatics. Lunatics Unleashed.
Wow.
Yeah, it was like extreme Bugs Bunny. Like anyway, so I watch a lot of weird stuff. Sorry, Joe. Anyway, Lions side. It's not weird unless you make it weird. So, yes, more, please, of your Lions players in this one against Seattle at home. They should be feeling it. I just want to see more Gibbs, personally.
You have to love the Lions offense this week, right? None of us had the Rams offense as one of the most prolific offenses of week one without Cooper Kupp. It's just, come on, really? You take away Cooper Kupp, they're going to struggle. Well, Matthew Stafford and company said, no, we're going to be able to do what we want. Well, except to run the ball efficiently, but they were able to run the ball a lot because they controlled the game. So what are the Lions going to be able to do against this Seattle defense? Of course, Amon-Ra St. Brown, of course, Sam Laporta, and maybe Josh Reynolds and Jared Goff, all of them. In the passing game, Marvin Jones looked like maybe the sun is setting, speaking of the sun, on his viability in fantasy leagues, but Josh Reynolds looked pretty good. David Montgomery's going to get as much work as he can handle. He's an every week running back 2 with running back 1 upside. Don't be surprised if this is a 2-touchdown or 3-touchdown game for him. And then, like you said, Jahmyr Gibbs. And I think Jahmyr Gibbs is a perfect moment. And we could talk about Tyjae Spears too, where we say, don't necessarily look at the usage for Gibbs, 30% or so of the snaps or touches. Look at what he did with those touches and look at what it's going to implore, what the Lions have already said as much, them to do. Broken tackles, explosiveness. In the case of Spears, the work was there, but the touches weren't there. So we don't want to get too hung up on box scores. We don't want to get too hung up on market shares, target shares, participation for week one. We want to know how players looked, and Gibbs looked like a player who has to get more work going forward and is going to do a lot with it.
Well, we're waiting for the injury report as we record here on Thursday morning, and it's LA Chargers against the Tennessee Titans. The reason why Austin Eckler is probably going to miss this week. If you feel something different, Bloom, please let me know. But now we're looking at a Joshua Kelly-led backfield. We're also looking at, okay, I got a Quentin Johnston question last night. I was like, whoa, I mean, I love him. I love his game. I hate that the league let the Chargers get him. I was like, that's unfair. They already have enough weapons. But like, okay, let's hold our horses here. But it's against Tennessee. So maybe we should just let the wild horses run in that Chargers offense.
Right. See, how easy is it to hold your horses? You would know more than anybody. When you say hold your horses, is easier
It
said than
depends
done?
on if they're feeling their oats. You've heard me say it before.
Yeah. What does that mean? So when you give horses oats, do they get real frisky?
Yeah, it's like when I get my full cup of Bubba, my coffee, like, and then I get going, or if I get my G4 Gamer Fuel. Stay away from Gamer Fuel, Bloom. I know you've drank some Mountain Dew in your time. Delicious nectar from the gods.
Yeah.
I love Gamer Fuel. Can only drink one. And then it's like, wow, whew. But holding your horses is tough, especially if they're feeling their oats. If they're barn sour, then it's not a big deal because all they want to do is stay home.
We have to get the horse vernacular in
barn sour
for this one. Yeah. I think that when we look ahead to this one, Eckler, it's a long season. So especially ankle injuries with the chance of recurrence, I do think that pending more information about the practice participation, they are setting us up maybe for Eckler to miss this one. And it is a tough Tennessee run defense. So even if Josh Kelly comes back to earth, don't assume that means that what we saw in week one isn't going to persist, at least in easier matchups against run defenses that aren't as stiff as Tennessee. And wouldn't you want to pick on Tennessee's secondary anyway? So we're going to see a test here for Kellen Moore, because this kind of looked like the Dallas offense, right? We thought that Kellen Moore was going to represent a big improvement. And yeah, Joe Lombardi's offense, sure enough, was a dink and dunk offense. But this was still a more conservative offense, and one that, if they've been able to convert late, would have been able to win against a high-flying Miami offense, even with that conservative, very good running game. Will that persist with Eckler, or with the banged-up Eckler? So what you hope here is more Mike Williams as a downfield target, more target funneling to Keenan Allen. You mentioned Johnston, Josh Palmer, and hey, Donald Parham is doing some stuff to complicate things. So if the pie stays smaller, because this is a balanced, even in NFL terms in 2023, run-heavy offense, then how do we project the passing game? But rational coaching would dictate to me, Cease, against the Tennessee defense that had allowed 3 good wide receiver games for fantasy football, that this is going to be a Justin Herbert game. At the same time, though, the Chargers played well enough to win against a team. Certainly it's going to be in the mix in the AFC, and they come out with a loss. Tennessee's a tough out. Tennessee, another team loving this us against the world narrative. And they went down to the Superdome and played the Saints pretty tough. And if they had gotten a few calls their way, they probably would have won that game. So Chargers going east, early game. This one's going to be tough. And after seeing a lot of Tyreek Hill, they're probably going to see a lot of Derrick Henry and hopefully more Tyjae Spears.
Yes, we will watch Tennessee with great interest, and I think I said Thursday morning. I'm sorry.
okay.
Bloom has to deal with so much off air. You guys don't even know.
Oh, no.
Because Sunday night, and I felt bad because someone on Twitter was like, you kept saying okay after the stats. And then they're like, I love you. I'm just kidding. I was like, I worked 18 hours. I'm sorry. I'll be better. But in Bloom, you put up with so much because I'll just show up before the show and be like, let's go. Where's my coffee? Like, we're getting into a rhythm, baby. So Wednesday,
Yeah.
Thursday. It is Wednesday. I know that now. But I think I said Thursday.
The important thing is we're here with our people. That's what's great. I mean,
they're forgiving. They have grace. Thank you.
They are forgiving. I've seen more than one person today say it was the first time they've joined us live. Come join the chat. It's the most friendly chat room. I'm so glad. I mean, of all the things I can say that we've accomplished in our career here, the community, the specific Audible community is just so friendly and positive and really forgiving to us. So thank you. I don't even necessarily feel like we have to apologize because y'all make us feel so accepted. And Tennessee, well, are they going to accept more poor play from Ryan Tannehill? Maybe they won't have to. That's the thing. So on one hand, we're looking at Ryan Tannehill and the 3 interceptions. And also just DeAndre Hopkins. Yeah, he can be a possession receiver. Bad things are happening when you're passing to DeAndre Hopkins downfield. So, it's not exactly Tyreek Hill. This should be a game that Tennessee passes the ball 15 or 20 times. And it's a lot of Derrick Henry and a lot of Tyjae Spears. And of course, you're going to play DeAndre Hopkins and find a way to get Traylon Burks involved. Chiggy Okonkwo, there's ways to get him more involved. But again, this was a very choppy pass offense. Derrick Henry, keep him involved in the passing game. We saw a little bit of that carryover from last year. But really, Cecil, you look at last week with Kelly and Eckler, and you really want Tennessee to copy that. And you hope they can make some plays on defense against Justin Herbert. But we know that the Chargers against Derrick Henry is usually something that would make us salivate in fantasy football. We'll see if Brandon Staley, who I'd love as a person, and I'm glad that people like Brandon Staley, people like Mike McDaniel are head coaches. But yeah, Brandon Staley was supposed to be brought in for the defense. And that's a problem when you look at what happened in week 1.
Yeah, it's a problem with Ryan Tannehill. The Woodman says, how many picks? Like, I'm waiting for season-wise. Like, there's a tipping point.
Right.
Where is it? Where do we see Will Levis? Where do we see Malik Willis? Like, where do we see a change? And, it's Vrabel. It's a tough out. We've said that before. It's like, okay, but you're wasting time with Ryan Tannehill. You had a window. They were the number 1 seed in the AFC, Bloom. Like, you had a window. That window was gone.
Yeah.
So what are you doing? Like, what are you doing? Anyway, let's move on. Couple games left here in the preview. Week 2 preview, part 1 here on the Audible. Chicago and Tampa Bay is up next. And Chicago side of things, I feel like, well, I love Roschon Johnson. Can I trust Roschon Johnson? Based off last week, I'm trending yes. Looks likely, but that backfield's still full, still cramped. You still got Justin Fields who can take off and run as well. Still love Roschon, more in the flex category, but I feel good about starting him. Where in week 1, I'd even suggested to people like, I want to see how it shakes out. I'm not starting Roschon, and I love him. I told somebody that, like, I love this guy. I'm not starting him. Well, guess what I should have done? Start him. I'll do it this week. What about Justin Fields and DJ Moore? Get a lot of DJ Moore questions now, Bloom. I'm sure you are as well. Like, okay, Chicago, week 1 dud, week 2 stud against the Buccaneers. Well, maybe.
Ooh, this one is a real test of rational coaching, right? Luke Getsy was not exactly a vaunted hire when Matt Eberflus was brought in, defensive head coach. And you're thinking, oh, okay, well, maybe he learned something from Matt LaFleur. And Well, we have the whole question cease of Aaron, Aaron Rodgers. Remember Adam Gase, how quarterbacks can make offensive coordinators until they get exposed. Is Luke Getsy getting exposed? Because, wow, was this a terrible, terrible game for Chicago, especially if you were looking for that step forward from Justin Fields. Tons of short passing, very little, I think 0 designed Justin Field runs, and very little downfield passing to DJ Moore, who's frustrated already. So now you're facing Tampa. Tampa's run defense is still very tough, but you saw them have a lot of vulnerabilities through the air against Minnesota. Rational coaching dictates that even if it's with play action passing, even with its moving the pocket, something to get Justin Fields and the DJ Moore connection going, and something to create some momentum in this passing game and in this offense. So we're going to watch that. And again, it's officially going to be a panic if they decide to go with the same approach, because Tampa Bay's defense is aggressive. And if you lull them, you don't give them reasons to play anything but downhill, this is going to be potentially very rough. See, I don't know that I know the Jets were the most depressed fan base after week 1, but I didn't see a more discouraged fan base than the Bears fan base. And this is a really important game to change the energy around that team. That's going to mean getting the Fields to Moore connection going. And like you said, maybe, just maybe, more Rashawn Johnson in what looked like a 3-headed backfield. Johnson was mostly in when the game was out of hand, but he looked the best, and this is always in motion. So what starts out as a 3-headed backfield, and it helped that they were throwing all that short passing to him and to Khalil Herbert, even to Dante Foreman, but you want to see something that, again, some more conventional running, play action passing, moving the pocket, something to get Justin Fields clicking as a downfield passer. Also, by the way, Chase Claypool is doing his bid for the worst player on the field in week 1. So good job. If the Steelers trade a wide receiver, chances are Martavis Bryant, Antonio, you don't want that wide receiver. Cole Kmet did okay. Darnell Mooney did okay. Mooney a little bit banged up. We'll watch that. But all eyes on Fields to Moore, and all eyes on the plucky competitor Baker Mayfield trying to make his team 2-0.
Yeah, Jimmy asking, please convince me I can start Rachaad White, as my RB2 flex is already occupied with a wide receiver. Well, that's where we get to the questions about the Tampa offense. And okay, Rachaad, can they use him more as a receiver? Like, how does that going to work? How does it work against the Bears? And could this just be disappointing for both sides, Bloom? That's what I'm afraid of, honestly.
Yeah. Well, the Bears defense, again, recontextualizing, is Jordan Love actually pretty good? Is Jordan Love actually going to at least be more than competent, especially running this Matt LaFleur offense? Or is it just that the Bears defense is still one that we're going to target when it comes time to set our lineups? Not that you're going to put Baker Mayfield in, maybe as a low-end quarterback 2 super flex, but he does make you confident, at least right now, to put in Mike Evans, put in Chris Godwin. I think he's going to be able to support their value. And we'll see about Rachaad White. He's getting the touches, and that's about all you can say. I think with Rachaad White, you're hoping for a bounce back game from him, or we are going to be talking about Sean Tucker on the waiver wire show pretty soon. But as we saw it from some of these teams that won, and fantasy football, we didn't necessarily love their results. Tampa Bay can continue to get 2 point whatever yards a carry, but if they're winning, maybe they won't make a change. But I think we're looking at the Bears defense. Again, they hired a defensive head coach, still being one to target. And we're looking at Tampa Bay saying, we're building? What do you mean rebuilding? We're still here, and it's the NFC South. So maybe we could get back to the playoffs.
Yeah. What do you mean? It's a trailer on the beach. We're fine.
Yeah, it's Florida life.
Totally fine. It is the Audible Cecil, Lammey, Sigmund, Bloom. 1 game to go. You mentioned Chase Claypool. I give you a Kadarius Toney. Okay. And Patty Ice again Wednesday morning. Wednesday. Watching the injury report. Okay, is Travis Kelce going to play? Okay, like this is important. And then I want to see, will they trust Isaiah Pacheco more? It's against Jacksonville, and this one's going to be Like, very fun to watch, because how does Kansas City bounce back? How does Jacksonville themselves hold that off? We'll talk about them in just a little bit, but let's talk about the Chiefs, the disappointment from week one. Rashee Rice, who they like, who got in the end zone. Is he the player you can trust? I'm not giving up on Sky Moore. You and I talked about that in the waiver wire show. Too much behind the scenes stuff was told to me about Sky Moore, and they absolutely love him. So if there's someone you want to force the football to and force feed him, it's Sky Moore. Get that thing jump started, get that connection going, because even though it wasn't on the field, and that's where it matters, but that chemistry has been there with Mahomes and Moore. So pass the M&Ms, Bloom, and let's talk a little Kansas City.
Yes, Patrick Mahomes with a lot of Aiden Hutchinson in his face, enduring drops from his receivers with no Travis Kelce, without a running game to speak of, was still a pretty strong fantasy play overall. When we look back over how the quarterback, especially you look at what Allen did, you look at what Hurts did, you look at what Fields did, you look at what Burrow did, you look at the other Lamar Jackson. So maybe Patrick Mahomes is going to be just fine with Kelce, with an easier matchup. And that's without a wide receiver emerging. We're going to watch Kadarius Toney, and more than, I mean, we want to see if he drops the ball or otherwise has his head in the game, but do they continue to go back to him? And Sky Moore, who honestly the connection looked more out of sync and made me a little more worried. And then Rashee Rice, who got few snaps, but a lot of targets and did a lot more with his targets. So those are the three principles I think we're watching in the passing game. Of course, there's Valdez-Scantling and Justin Watson in the downfield passing game, but they're not going to have consistent value. Or again, Travis Kelce just show up and say, it's all irrelevant. All this talk is irrelevant anyway. It's, again, Alfredo Brown saying we're going to keep stepping on the rake of looking for a wide receiver that's going to be consistent in fantasy football in Kansas City. And like you said, the backfield with Isaiah Pacheco, they might have been a little cautious coming back off of 2 offseason surgeries. Maybe we see more of him. At least we saw more of him in the passing game than we saw last year. A little bit of Clyde Edwards-Helaire, very little of Jerick McKinnon. Again, we told you they're going to pace his work, load management, so he's there for them in December, January. So especially if they can control this game on the road, that would point towards a bigger game for Isaiah Pacheco. And again, Kansas City lost. They're cool as a cucumber. Jacksonville, now this is a really fun point in the schedule for this game to come up for them, because it was maybe a harder fought win than you expected against an Indianapolis team that was a little discombobulated coming into week one. Now they have a chance, though, to show that, no, this is a team, again, Cincinnati, Buffalo, we're looking at them saying, where do they stand? Can Jacksonville, Miami, can we start to see that turnover at the top of the AFC? This will be a good indicator, at least early in the season.
Yeah, I love it. I love it for Jacksonville's side. And and it has nothing to do with the Broncos, because everyone should know I'm not a Broncos fan. I just cover the team. But I'm rooting for Jacksonville. I want to see a good game. I want to see Kansas City bounce back. And we talk about influence. I think influence is the conversation that's left out of most football talk, but we bring it up here because it's the declaration of influence. When Travis Kelce is on the field, it influences it so great.
Yeah.
Incredibly what you have to do defensively and how you're going to play that team. And then Jacksonville has their own set of weapons that can influence you as well. And you should be influenced, Bloom. How about this for a segue?
Okay.
You should be influenced to start your Jaguars this week.
Yeah. And if the Jaguars win, a lot of people up there in Duval are going to be under the influence probably into Monday morning. Because, hey, I'm going to get excited as a Jags fan.
Yeah, baby.
Trevor Lawrence has to be feeling good because he has a real number one receiver in Calvin Ridley. And let's watch them make beautiful music together. Zay Jones remains viable. Zay Jones remains a wide receiver 3 flex. Evan Ingram remains viable as a tight end 1. He still looks good. It's Christian Kirk we're wondering about. I don't know if we're going to go as far to shut Christian Kirk down if he doesn't do much in week 2, but we may look back and say we should have, as for all the money they gave him. And isn't it funny, Cease? This is kind of like San Francisco trading away Trey Lance for peanuts, right? They gave Christian Kirk $18 million a year. He's a role player in the pass offense, and everything's going wonderfully for this team. So Trent Baalke and these moves all adding up, including the Travis Etienne pick. And Etienne struggled to run the ball, and it's not necessarily going to be a bounce back week for Dameon Pierce. More of that tomorrow morning on the second part of the week to preview, as Travis Etienne was bottled up for a while as a runner until he got the touchdown to ice the game. And that's the thing. Etienne in a good team, good offense, it doesn't matter even if the defense is holding him down. He's going to get his, and he's going to get his in the passing game. And Tank Bigsby honestly didn't look good. He didn't look ready for prime time. Scored a touchdown. Otherwise was responsible for 2 turnovers, at least partially responsible for 2 turnovers. And you're going to continue to see Etienne control this backfield. This is a really fun game. I think this game is one that if you could just watch one game in the early bracket of games, this is the one that you want. And it's one that I think is going to be extremely entertaining. And, another thing, Cecil, I'll say, and maybe I'm projecting a little bit here, is as we start to look ahead to week 2, flush, just get all week 1. I mean, it's going to be a distant memory soon. And it feels like these week 1 results are so determinative or so predictive, but you're going to see the second data point. We're going to start to course correct. We're going to start to figure this out, and we're going to continue to spend time, have fun along the way. Love the turnout in the chat room. And I feel so thankful every time we get to sit down, be in these boxes, be with our wonderful community, talk about football.
Deciphering week 1 between week 2 is Pepe Sylvia. Pepe Sylvia. It's everywhere. Pepe Sylvia. Yeah.
Right.
Well, yes. And what's interesting, I was going to say cool, but I'll just say interesting. What's interesting about the league is like once we kind of get a beat on it, it's the snow globe. It changes.
Yeah.
Like you get about a month in, you get film on everybody. Okay, here's what they want to do. Now let's take that away from them. And so it changes. So there's quarters to these seasons.
Yep.
So it's fun. It's interesting. It's a wild ride. So buckle up. And of course, football guys, we are here for you. He's Sigmund Bloom. You follow him on all the socials at Sigmund Bloom. I am at Cecil Lammey. We appreciate you dearly. And always check out footballguys.com. Help us grow the YouTube channel and fight the YouTube algorithm, or help it. I don't know. Fight it, help
Teach
it,
it.
whatever.
Tell
Teach
it. Tell it people should want to watch.
Tell
this
it what
show.
to do by commenting, sharing, subscribing, and hitting the notification bell so that you never miss a vid. And if you comment in the chat, please comment below as well. It helps the algorithm. It gets us in front of more people. And this business is always so weird because it's like, you guys are my secret weapon. And I'm like, oh, okay. Well, we'd like other people to be other people's secret weapons too. But either way, we're here for you. We have fun. It's YouTube. It's footballguys.com. Thanks. Check out all of our channels, all of our shows. Fantastic, tremendous, and wonderful. Sigmund, who you got on the couch today on Wednesday?
Our favorite crazy uncle, Bob Harris.
Yes.
Yeah, tune in. We're going to try to get that fixed at 2 p.m. Eastern every Wednesday live. And if it's not live, it will release around that time. Also, the IDP Blitz will be coming out for the IDP players. We're going to record with Matt Schauf today. And it's just so wonderful to get to serve everybody in our community.
Yes, we are here for you. He's Sigmund. I'm Cecil. We are the Audible, everyone. Thanks for watching. Stay tuned. And as always, please stay frosty,